Welcome to the Mid-Penn Bank Podcast, hosted by President and CEO Rory Retrieve. In this episode, Rory is joined by Joel Frank, Chairman and Managing Partner of Lamb McErlane PC. Here's the conversation.
So, are you a music guy?
Not so much, really. No.
Yeah. So, what do you do? You know enough about music to evaluate? What do you think of the music?
This music?
Yeah.
Very pleasant, very calming, soothing.
Yeah, a little
bit
jazzy.
upbeat. Yeah, absolutely.
Upbeat.
Yeah, get
That's
the juices
good.
flowing a little bit.
That's what we were looking for.
Good.
All right. But you never. Hey, cut it. All right, Scott's. He's fresh off vacation. He's still in vacation mode. So, when you're younger, your parents didn't make you take like a musical
Well,
instrument.
no, I did. Like trombone, trumpet, that kind of stuff.
Trombone?
But I didn't stick with it too long.
My parents never did, and I went to parochial school, so we didn't like. It wasn't like part of the curriculum,
Right,
like,
right.
Where it is, I think, in a lot of schools. But so you did trombone and what else?
Trumpet.
Trumpet.
Yeah.
And
The brass.
just didn't hold.
I can't read music if my life depended on it.
So if you picked up a trombone or a trumpet today,
Nothing.
nothing. Yeah.
Nothing. Got nothing for you.
Well, fortunately, you didn't go the route of music because you went the route of law, and the real reason I wanted to have you in here, in addition to being a great board member of Mid-Penn Bancorp Inc. and Mid-Penn Bank, you were recently recognized in the Super Lawyers. Is that across the country or is that like a regional?
It's through the state itself.
Yeah.
5% of Pennsylvania lawyers get that designation.
Right.
And if you're voted
5%.
upon, 5%.
So it's always 5%.
Correct.
Okay.
Voted upon by like your peers and judges, etc.
Right.
There's no
So does every lawyer in Pennsylvania get to vote?
I don't know.
So you said you're voted on by the lawyers and judges.
There's an evaluation panels,
Yeah.
I guess, that go that I never really looked into it. I mean, fortunate enough, I think it's been 20 years in a row, quite honestly, that I got that designation ever since super lawyers started.
Right.
I've been fortunate enough in the area of general litigation to get ahead and be recognized.
Now, do people still look when you hear super lawyers? I wish they had a super bankers. I'd hope to be on the list, but
No doubt.
do lawyers like value that designation, that recognition?
They do. And
Yeah.
you get, I don't really put it on my signature line, my signature block, with my emails or anything like that, but there's some that do.
Right.
So I just have that in my list of accomplishments, if you will, on my CV, et cetera.
Right.
But I don't do it any more than that.
And do they come to you, or do you have to submit your name, or does someone nominate you, or is it just
it's like an ongoing process,
Yeah.
They check in different things. I don't know exactly what criteria they go ahead and use, but it's like different cases that, you've been on, et cetera. Your role within a firm, et cetera, in light of my roles, of different, variables that they take into account. And then, but you don't get it automatically every year. They evaluate every single year.
right? You just happen to be 20 years in a row.
Correct.
You're a stud. All right. So the magazine, do they put it out once a year?
Correct.
All right. So the reason you got a little bit more notoriety this year than usual is because they did an article on you.
They did, yeah.
Yeah. Not up front, front. No, I would have put you on the front cover. But,
Yeah, no, what the hell?
but they did. They had a different, I'm sure that person was very deserving of having a front cover. But the article on you was because you have committed yourself to a life of discipline and martial arts and things of that nature, right?
Yeah, correct. What it is, they reach out to various firms to see if they want to feature, somebody for consideration. Mm-hmm. And we have a part-time marketing director within the firm. So she responded on my behalf, thinking that again, my role in the state athletic commissioner, as a commissioner on the state athletic commission, and the 30 plus years practicing martial arts, she thought that would maybe be a topic that they were interested in.
Right.
So,
Well, I think it should be a topic that they're interested in. And I mean, that's a unique path.
It is. It's atypical. I'm not sure.
Right.
I'm not the only one, but as far as martial arts background, commissioners things a different story. But they bought into it, and then there was probably about a 2-hour interview that I went through remotely with the author of the article, and ultimately, I didn't have a chance to get ahead and review it or anything like that. But she put the article together. It was one of, I think, maybe 4 or 5 lawyers specifically that were featured in this year's Super Lawyer magazine.
And were you comfortable with the headline and generally the way the article was written?
Yeah, I was very happy with it. I thought they did a nice job based upon the content of the interview.
Yeah, because sometimes they can go, those things can go different ways. I was interviewed for, I think it's Harrisburg Magazine years ago, and I hopefully the person that wrote the article is retired now in case she's listening. I generally think she did a good job, but she, in the very beginning, when I thought we were just trying to get to know each other. I told her a story about my oldest daughter, Juliana.
Sure.
You know.
That I do.
And the story was when Juliana was I think 3 or maybe 4. I think 3 though, because I don't think that her sister had come along yet. And it was summertime, and Jody went away for the weekend. And I think Jody might have been pregnant at the time. So this is probably 1999 or 2000, probably 2000. And so Jody said, hey, take her over to swim lessons Saturday morning. Okay, great. So we belong to a country club on the other side of the river. So I get her in her swimsuit and I, put her cover up on and get her into the car, and she's excited, and we drive the 20 or so minutes to get over to the country club. And as soon as I get out of the car and go over and open up her door, she goes, where are we? I said, we're at swim lessons. She goes, I don't want to go to swim lessons. I'm like, well, I just drove the whole way over. No, I don't want to go to swim. So I'm now grabbing her out of the car, and she's kicking and screaming, and she does not want to. And it's kind of a long walk up to the pool area. So I'm literally, dragging her along.
Always a good look.
Always a good look. So I get into the pool area, and I'm taking her shoes off, and I'm taking her cover up off, and she's just screaming and yelling and doing everything she can not to take swim lessons. So I got her close to the pool, and I just picked her up and threw her in.
Uh-huh.
And she swam over to the other side and got out there and took her swim lesson. So
I see where this is going.
5 minutes pass.
All right.
And Jody calls me. And she's like, what did you do to my daughter? And I'm looking around all right, who dined me out?
Yeah, right.
One of the other moms that were there called Jody and was like, your husband just threw your daughter into the pool when she was screaming and yelling. So I tell this woman the story. And I'm not even sure why I told her the story.
Right.
But again, it was we're trying to get to know each other. So
so you thought.
Yeah, right. So the article is about Harrisburg at the time. You probably remember this. This is after Steve Reed.
Uh-huh.
And it was right around the time that Linda Thompson became the mayor. And the city was in kind of, financial straits because of the incinerator and everything.
Yep.
And she was asking me what my advice would be. And I was giving that advice. And so she wrote the whole article and basically says, Retrieve tells Harrisburg to sink or swim.
Yeah, I knew exactly where that was going to go.
And she starts it by telling that story. So the story blowed up.
That's pretty good. That's funny.
Juliana loves it now. Because she doesn't remember the day, but, 27 years later, whatever.
More importantly, we'd be okay with Jody. With Jody all
yeah. She was fine. Yeah, she was fine. As soon as she found out that I didn't actually drown her, she was good. So you were comfortable with the headline. You were comfortable with the article.
Yeah. I think maybe 98% of it. There are a couple things there that I tweaked a little bit, but yeah, absolutely very happy with the article overall.
So you guys, put that out on social media,
yes,
which is a good idea, because how would that otherwise help you? I think only lawyers read that Super Lawyers magazine, right? It's not
that's my understanding.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's a smart thing for you to put it out on social media. Did you get any good feedback from that?
Yeah, we really did. I mean, people that I haven't heard from in a while, people actually from high school, I've lost touch with, et cetera, got in touch with me and, gives them accolades, et cetera. So
right.
Yeah, it was pretty, it was well received.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So 20 years of doing this, 20 years of being on that list.
Yeah.
Do you think that it's helped you in your career?
I assume as much, Rory. Again, you never know what goes into a potential client's mind, like how much due diligence they do to figure out if you're the right fit or not for them or a given case. So it can't hurt. Let's put it that way. Either it does make a difference or it helps, but it's certainly not going to hurt. Again, with that 5% designation.
So, Scott, you may or may not know, Joel is the managing partner.
Chairman and managing partner.
Chairman and managing partner of Lamb Mackerel Lane, which is down in Westchester.
Yeah, headquartered in Westchester, 5-6 offices across the southeast.
Westchester because close to the courthouse?
County seat.
Yeah.
Chester County, correct.
So most of the cases that you get involved in, like, what's the general nature of the cases? So are they...
It's so across the board. I mean, the firm now itself, I mean, me personally, the firm overall.
Let's start with you, you personally, and then kind of what all the firm does.
It's everywhere and anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
As far as topics, which is kind of why I like it so much. So I've been practicing, it's 38 years,
Wow.
Practicing right now. And I still like, I think I told you the competitive nature of it, first and foremost in the litigation format.
And you would be considered a litigator.
Correct.
Like that's your thing.
Correct. Yeah. Listen, with my administrative responsibilities now, I'm not in court as much as I used to be. And the type of matters I handle now are usually more oral argument related or maybe a day or two hearing. But I can't afford, quite honestly, anymore to be like out of the office for like 7 or 10 days on a trial and everything that's meant it leads up to that as far as preparation, et cetera. So a little bit less out front, but still, a lot of arguing.
So are some of these, are they like business type cases or are they personal?
Listen, it's either between businesses, businesses themselves, or between an individual and a business, or between individuals.
And who do you tend to represent? Do you go
either or? See, I think it's important too because it's not just plaintiff's work or just defense work. Because I think that's one of the benefits, quite honestly, is you get a better perspective. If you're doing just defense work or just plaintiff's work, I think you could have a tendency to get more blinders on, right? And not necessarily evaluate a case. Your mindset's always the same. But doing plaintiff's work and defense work, I think, is more of a good balance for actually looking for the strengths or the weaknesses of a given case.
And when you were in law school, did you know you wanted to go into litigation?
Not necessarily. I actually went to law school, as was referenced in the article, because at that point I wanted to join the FBI. Mm-hmm. And back then, there were only two ways to do that. You had to be an accountant or a lawyer back in the day.
Right.
And
now they just let anyone.
Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't go that far. Hey,
that's
Rory said that, not Joel.
That's not a comment on the FBI. We love the FBI.
That we do. So anyway, that's why I initially went to law school. And then I actually, in between second and third year, I ended up clerking for Judge Phyllis Beck on the Superior Court. Mm-hmm. She introduced me to a couple of folks there. And then I was fortunate enough to get a pretty nice offer out of law school to the Dilworth Paxson firm in Philadelphia, which back then, from my perspective, I'm reticent to say good, best, whatever, but that was, I think, back then, the preeminent litigation firm in the city.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Do you think that, other than than you guys, do they still have that?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it was small. Back then, again, we were talking 1986, so it was a while ago. And again, still very solid firm, et cetera. But I think they're about maybe 125 lawyers. Back then, they were 220 or there. But the sizes and everything. Still very capable people there.
Right.
But back in the day, I think they really had really stellar litigators from which it was a great opportunity to learn. Mm-hmm. I think as referenced, I can't remember if it's in the article or not, but I was fortunate enough that they threw me right into the mix. I'm not like a library research guy. It's not my personality. It's not my forte. But before I found out if I even passed the bar, they were sending me out to depositions.
Really?
To do depositions.
So you started with them
right out of law school.
Before you got the passed bar exam.
Yeah.
So you're studying for the bar.
Correct. You take the bar.
So what year did you graduate from law school?
1986.
So this is like the summer of 86 before you take the bar in July.
Well, no, I didn't start right then and there because I studied for that during that summer. I think I started in mid-August. That's one of the earlier ones because a lot of the other, there was a class of 6 at Dilworth at that point. They had all been at the previous summer, program. I was new to the organization, so I wanted to get in there early on and get my legs, beneath me and all that stuff. So I think I started something like August 17th of 86.
So you've taken the bar,
in
but
July.
You don't know whether you passed or
Correct.
not. Yeah.
So you're off and running. Because back then, it's quicker now than my understanding. Back then, you didn't find out till mid-November whether you passed the bar or not.
Yeah, it's probably a lot quicker.
Oh, it is now. Yeah, because you used to get a letter. You find out in a letter, snail mail.
Right.
Now you just go online, you sign in, and you find out if you passed.
Yeah, now they tell you the day that they're gonna that, which I hated that, by the way. So I took the bar in July of 1996. And I was already one and done. Like, I'm not taking it the second time.
Right.
And this is around the time when, remember John Kennedy? Kennedy,
right.
I'm like, well, he flunked it like 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
What am I gonna do?
Well, it's funny because I took PA in 86, and I took Florida in 91. So I did take it a second bar in 91. But I'm going to let you know the secret I didn't tell many people. I befriended another lawyer. His name is Greg Sorello. He's still with the Dilworth firm. He's vice chairman of the Dilworth firm. His dad, Judge Vincent Sorello, was the president judge of the Superior Court.
Wow.
So I actually
you
got
clerked for the Superior Court judge, right?
That was Judge Phyllis Beck,
Yeah,
correct,
right.
during the summer.
Yeah.
But Judge Vince Cirillo, took a liking to me. I was over their house for dinner and pasta. He brought me to the Italian Social Club. So he got, I was Greg's friend. So he ended up bringing me into the family fold, so to speak. So he actually let us know 2 weeks before everybody else. He found out that we passed the bar. So we couldn't tell anybody, right? We were like sitting, Greg and I were sitting like, we had to fake it a little bit. We were like, nice and relaxed. We found out like the end of October that we had passed the bar. So I was fortunate enough to get that.
I have a story to tell you too.
Okay.
So I'm not going to use any names.
Right.
But so I take it in July, and I'm hearing that they're going to post the results like on this day. I don't know when it was. It was August, September, whatever it was.
Right.
And I'm like, man, like I can't believe that they basically inform everyone before they inform anyone, right? So I'm like, well, what if I flunk? So I'm going to be like, all my family and friends and all these people I know, they're all going to jump on there and look. This is in my mind.
Sure.
I don't think anyone cares, right?
Yeah, right.
So I'm like, if all those people jump on there and my name's not on there, they're going to know I flunked. So I said, I can't have that. So I contacted someone who contacted someone to find out whether I passed or not. And this is like the day before. And that person went back to the person I asked and said, tell him he's going to be happy.
There you go.
So the guy calls me and said, they said you're going to be happy. And I'm like, what does that mean?
I'm sure you're right.
That's how paranoid I was. Like, what does that mean? Did they say I passed?
Right.
No, they just said you're going to be happy. I'm like, that doesn't mean anything. Like,
That's funny.
for all I know, they could have thought that I was going to be happy that I wasn't going to be in it.
And what year did you take it again?
96.
Got it.
Yeah. And that whole bar exam, I assume it was the same way when you took it 10 years earlier. One day of multiple choice,
Yeah,
one
correct.
day of essay. Essays are the first day.
I even forget which order, but I know if you get a certain number on the multiple choice, they don't even bother reading your essays.
Right.
So
No, they do now.
Oh, do they?
mean, well, I don't know if they do now, but they did when I took
Got
it.
it.
So first day is the essays, and second day is multiple choice. So we go to this hotel in Harrisburg. It's no longer there. And there's, I don't know how many kids are taking this, 400, 500. It's like the room's packed.
Oh, yeah.
It's a big banquet room, and they have tables set up. And I'm so there's a wall in front of me. So there's no more kids in front of me. There's a wall.
That's smart.
Put them in a line of people. So they, start the exams. And this guy sitting next to me, he reads and whispers.
Oh, great.
So he's going, and I'm like,
Just what you need.
I'm like I'm trying to read, and he's reading, and we're not like synced up, so I can hear him whispering, and I'm trying to focus on the exam, and I'm like,
Talk about distracting. Huh?
I'm trying to make eye contact with a proctor, and a proctor walks over, and I'm like, and they just put their arms up and they walk away. So the way that day goes, there's a halftime. So there's like 3 hours, then a halftime, and then 3 more hours.
Right.
So as soon as they said, all right, pencils down, I looked over at this guy and I said, hey, man, you're whispering when you're reading? And he goes, oh, yeah, that's just a habit of mine. And I said, you need to break that habit by the second.
Did he?
He didn't. So I didn't hear a peep out of him. I also went across the street and got some earplugs.
Yeah, that helps.
Oh, my gosh. That was like, You got to be kidding me.
Yeah, how
Like,
annoying could that be?
This is what I'm going to put up with this guy whispering all day?
Yeah, it's enough pressure anyway. With the timing component of it and everything there. This guy's like distracting you.
Yeah, I didn't think that was going to had anywhere near the level of preparation for it that I thought that, most, because I was working. Like I was, getting up in the morning and getting to work by 7, taking the bar review class at 5, studying at a hotel till 1 o'clock in the morning, and going home, getting a few hours sleep and starting it over.
Yeah.
That was like the worst summer of my life.
I bet.
But the good news was I had a job, so I wasn't really intending to be an attorney. So there wasn't like an incredible amount of pressure, like I'm sure you felt, because you got a job.
Yeah. And at that point, don't forget, I'm married already, man, because I got married between the second and third year of law school, right?
What, are you crazy?
Yeah, maybe.
Well, if you knew his wife, Jean, she's spectacular.
That's nice. Thank you.
That's a person you definitely want to marry as soon as you can before she changes her mind. So, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Delaware County. I was born actually in Philadelphia, the Winfield section specifically.
So, what area of Delco?
South, is it in the
Like
Broomall?
what town?
Broomall.
Okay.
Yeah, Broomall specifically.
So, wait, you were born where?
In Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And
in the
then
city.
I was there in the city, in Winfield section of the city, up until I went through kindergarten and first grade there, and then in between first grade and second grade is when we moved to Broomall in Delaware County.
And what did your parents do?
My dad was a CPA.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And my mom was an administrative assistant. She worked for like a retirement community out there doing like administrative roles.
Mm-hmm. And are any siblings or?
Younger sister who is a special ed teacher. She's been down in Florida and actually just retired after, I think, 35 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Younger sister.
Younger sister. And she's retired already.
Done.
Well, I mean, teachers, that's what they do.
Yeah.
So are your parents, either of them, still around?
I'm so fortunate that they're both still around.
Really?
My dad's just turned 90 and my mom just turned 88.
Wow.
They are down in Florida at a place called Tequesta.
What town?
Tequesta.
Oh, Tequesta's
Yeah,
town.
town. It's immediately west of Jupiter.
Okay.
So they're down that way on the East Coast. Again, about 20 minutes from my sister.
Right.
So thankfully that she's there to go ahead and do some assistance
Nice.
when needed.
So how are they doing physically?
Relatively good. Mom's having a couple issues right now, mobility-wise, et cetera.
Well, I'm having a couple issues.
Yeah, right. Aren't we all, right?
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's crazy. 1988.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah, still together.
Were they like high school sweethearts? Or?
Nah, but they've been married since 1958. So
That's
long
incredible.
run.
So when you moved from the city out to the suburbs,
Right.
did Dad get a big promotion and moving on up, or?
Well, that was his firm. He had his own firm. It was like Frank and Cohen. They were
Mhm.
actually located right in Ardmore on Lancaster Avenue.
And were they doing like personal tax returns or business stuff?
Across the board, to my recollection. It was a smaller place, maybe 5 or 6.
Now, did you ever think about getting into that business?
No,
No. It was just accounting wasn't your thing.
it was not my thing.
What was your thing? What subject matters did you most appreciate either in high school or college? Let me add, when you went to college, were you thinking about law school, or did that develop at some point?
It developed at some point, during the college career. Again, went to the University of Delaware.
Mm-hmm.
Was a political science, criminal justice, major. So it's kind of that.
You were a blue hen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Good run down there.
Yeah.
So I was there from
a
79
great
to
campus.
83. It is. And it was nice. It was far enough away from home that it had some independence, but it wasn't so far
Wasn't
that it
a
was like a
poppin'.
trek to get
Yeah, yeah,
home,
yeah.
or if I needed to or wanted to.
Right.
So,
you blue hen.
yep.
Any great football while you're there?
Yeah, some real good football.
Yeah.
Yeah, real good football.
I know they've had some good teams and
They
some
have.
good players.
Yeah.
Who's their most famous alum?
Is that a question or like a
No,
quiz?
from a football standpoint, not.
Yeah, Casey Keeler. I mean, there's a few. Tubby Raymond was down there. He was the coach when I was there.
Wasn't Flacco
Yeah,
Joe
he was.
Flacco.
He was not there at the same time I was, though.
and the other guy that was with the Raiders for a while, quarterback.
Oh, Gannon.
Yeah, Rich.
Yeah,
Gannon.
Gannon was there too. Yeah,
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
two big blue hens.
yeah.
So what were your favorite subjects in high school, college? Were you more of a liberal arts guy, or were you?
I always liked current events.
Mm-hmm.
Quite honestly, I still do. International relations, that kind of stuff. Big news guy.
Mm-hmm. And what was your major?
Political science and criminal
Political
justice.
science, okay.
Yeah.
So I took I started as a biology guy. Thought I was going to be a dentist.
Really?
Then I met organic chemistry and changed my mind.
Yeah, I'm out.
And then became economics, but also picked up a minor in math and communications.
Okay.
So the communications was really accidental, but I had this class. It was considered a communications class. It was taught by a guy by the name of Theodore Wendt, Wendt, and it was called Presidential Rhetoric. And there was Presidential Rhetoric 1 and Presidential Rhetoric 2. Each were a 3-credit class. And after I took one, I was like, I'm taking the other one.
I'm surprised there's only 2.
Yeah. Well, I think there may have been more as time went on. I mean, this is, not in the mid-'80s. And Pres Ret 1 started with Kennedy, maybe Eisenhower, maybe the end of Eisenhower, Kennedy, Johnson, and I think a little bit of Nixon. And then Pres Ret 2 was Nixon and Carter and Reagan.
Okay.
And it was the best class of all time.
Yeah, tell me about that. When you say presidential rhetoric, what was specifically?
It was like analyzing speeches and moments in time when the speeches were written and how meaningful they were and, their delivery and, the whole thing. So it was kind of a history class and kind of a communications class and kind of a political science class all wrapped into one. It was...
I think I would have liked that too. That sounds interesting.
I'm telling you. And this guy was a great professor. And he was theatrical.
Uh-huh.
And he would come there would be like 500 kids in this class. So it was always done in the David Lawrence Auditorium, if anyone, the pit guy, you know what that is. And it was one of their bigger rooms. And it was like a theater type setting. So you come in up here.
Like an amphitheater.
Walk down. Like an amphitheater. Yeah.
Yep.
And he had these 2 assistants, women, who would stand on one side of the stage or the other. And he would come into class. He was always the last one in. And in the back, doors would open and everyone turned around. And he would have like a trench coat on. And he would walk down, ceremoniously walk down, get up onto the stage, and turn around. And one of the women would take the...
Get out.
It was crazy.
It's like a wrestler.
It was very theatrical. But then what he ended up saying, you were on the edge of your seat. Because it was such an interesting class.
That's wild that he had the women doing
He
that.
just passed away a few years ago. I kept track of him here and there.
Any follow up with him after he left?
No. I only ever had follow up with one of my professors, a guy by the name of Steve Houston, who was a good economics professor, and stayed in touch with him for a little bit of time. But
got it.
Did you keep in touch with any of your? How about law school professors? Did you keep in touch with any of them?
Nah. Once I was done, I was pretty much done.
I do. And I'm not a lawyer. And I keep in touch with them.
Yeah, no, I really don't.
So do you do anything with Widener?
Nope.
You went to the Widener in Delaware, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, back then it was called Delaware Law School.
Right.
And then, whenever the transition was, Widener University School of Law. Yeah.
So you don't have any affiliation with the school anymore? They don't make you their distinguished alumni or anything like that?
No. I really have not interacted with them after I left.
So Widener in Harrisburg, they used to have a distinguished alumni and then a distinguished young alumni. I did get that.
Nice. Good.
But all these years later, I'm still waiting for the distinguished alumni.
You're still young.
They won't cough it up. So if you're listening to me, Andre Cummings or Christian Johnson, any of them, pass it on. And maybe mention Joel Frank to your counterparts down at Widener.
There we go.
Widener in Delaware.
Maybe we'll do a twofer. Maybe we can do a twofer.
I mean, so if you get on the Widener Delaware website, do they list all their distinguished alumni?
I don't know.
Did you ever get on there and look?
No.
They almost have.
I'm telling you, Rory, once I was done with law school, I was moving on to the professional world. And
yeah, but it's a good thing for them. I mean,
sure.
You're the chairman and managing partner of the biggest law firm in Westchester?
Yeah, in Chester County, correct.
Yeah, in Chester County. Yeah. And, the work that you guys are doing across the state, I would imagine they would want to brag about that.
Well, I can't tell you they haven't reached out on occasion. It's just that I haven't really necessarily gotten back to them.
So when they do reach out and they say, how important was law school to you, do you go, or do you say, I wouldn't be me without it?
Yeah, really, the latter. If I was to respond, I'd say the latter.
Right? Yeah, I would hope so. I mean, it's just self-preservation. That's the way you got to go.
Correct.
So you move to Delco.
Yep.
You go to Delaware. You go to Widener.
Yep.
You and Jean get married a couple years into law school.
Correct.
And where do you guys settle?
We just went a little further west in Newtown Square, which is adjacent to Broomall. So actually, you know what? I lied to you. We actually first got a place in Upper Darby, an apartment. And then we moved to we bought a townhouse in Newtown Square. And we were there before we moved to Westchester.
Newtown Square is a great place.
It is, yeah. So we were there from Westchester from 92 until 2019. And then we moved to Glenmore, where you're familiar with the house in Glenmore.
Wait, so you were in that townhouse until...
No. That was in Newtown Square. That was only for, I think maybe 4 years, 5 years.
Okay.
Then we moved to Westchester, West Goshen in Westchester, mailing address. And then, as you know, Glenmore in 2019.
Yeah. Scott, you should see this guy's house. Beautiful.
I love it.
I mean, I think I would be, not that I'm a fly fisherman, I think I would try to be a fly fisherman every day. I'd be out there in the morning, cup of coffee, throw a couple lines in.
It's nice. Yeah, just to give it context for the audience, I mean, it's right on the east branch of the Brandywine, and I open up my front door, and it's probably, 10 steps to the east branch of the Brandywine, and
now
it's very nice.
You do have people that fish that area, right?
Yeah, correct. Yep.
So if they're in the boundary of your property, do you say anything, or do you don't?
No, I let them. I actually sign a form at the beginning of every trout season, fishing season, that allows them to come on.
So do you have riparian rights? Is that what it is?
Well, you end up, I'm told, we own the property and then to the middle of the creek.
Okay.
Is what technically is
within the
property.
boundaries of the property to the middle of the creek.
Correct. Yeah, but it's a pretty cool gig. Like you said, you've seen it. It's very peaceful. It's very tranquil. But at the same time, it's like only a half an hour from my place. I take Creek Road all the way down
to
the office.
Westchester.
To Westchester. Yeah, it's a half-hour commute.
And you guys also have a Philly office.
Yeah, correct.
Where's that in Philly?
It's 16th and Market.
Okay.
We're Philly. We're Newtown Square, Cherry Hill, Oxford.
Oh, you have more than those two.
Oh, yeah. We're in Oxford in the southern part of Chester County. We also opened up recently. That's our most recent offices in Wilmington as well.
So when you first got the lamb, so what year is this?
I got to lamb in 97. I was at Dilworth from 86 through into 96. I started January 4th of 97 at Lamb Mackerel.
So you're at Dilworth for 11-ish years.
10 years, yeah.
And you go to Lamb, and you've been there ever since.
Since. Yep.
And how many years is that?
It'll be since you and I do some quick math. So it's in 97, so 28 years, right?
That sound right?
Yeah.
Or is it 38?
Nah.
28?
28.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I did 10 years
yeah.
at Philly first, right?
Yeah. So 38, 39 years of practicing law, two places.
Yes.
So when you went to Lamb, did they recruit you?
To an extent, yes. I mean, initially when I was kind of doing that commute into Philadelphia, and the firm, the previous firm where I wasn't the same firm as when I joined. So I knew that was like kind of like Lamb Mackerel from my perspective was really, even back then, like the firm in Chester County. We were living in Chester County at that point in time. So I forget how they initially reached out. I don't think it was a recommendation. I think there's a judge. It's coming back to me now. I think there's Judge Ben Lerner. He worked with me at Dilworth. He somehow had a connection with the Lamb firm. So that's how I initially got out there. And then because I was a partner.
So you were a partner at Dilworth.
Wow.
So how long did it take you to make partner?
I think 8 years.
Okay.
8 years, 9 years maybe.
Was that like the general track, or was that a little bit faster than the general track?
I think it was the general track back then. Yeah. So because I was partner there, they brought me in as a partner or shareholder at Lamb Mackerel.
Right.
So I didn't have to.
And at that time, was Lamb bigger than Dilworth?
Oh, no.
Much smaller?
Oh, yeah. At that point, I think I was like the 18th lawyer.
Wow.
At Lamb Mackerel at the time.
And did they only have the Westchester location
Correct.
at that point?
Correct.
So when did you become? So you get there in 97.
Yes.
When did you become senior partner?
I became managing partner, I think like 15 or 16 years ago.
Okay.
And then...
So that's 13 years in, just in case you're keeping.
And then when Bill Lamb retired about 5 years ago, I took on the additional title of chairman of the firm as well. Although, quite honestly, what I was doing as managing partner, especially later in the term as managing partner, there weren't any additional responsibilities, quite honestly, as chairman. Just a figurehead for the outside community, though.
So was he the founding?
Yeah, it goes back. The firm itself was started in 1948. Ted O'Neill was, I guess, Commonwealth Court judge. He and Mackerline, now Jim, Bill Lamb, Jim Mackerline, were the two named partners. Now there were a couple others along the way, but one left to take the bench. Another one, specifically retired relatively earlier on. So it was that name for since I don't know exactly since when, but ever since I've been there.
Since you've been there,
yeah, sure.
And so did the growth of the firm start after you became managing partner?
I think so. I had a different, and this is not good or bad necessarily, but I had a different mentality. I think
a little more aggressive, a little more
expansive,
sure.
et cetera.
Why not?
And they Lamb and Macklin, again, they're comfortable where everyone's making a nice living, but I had different visions, quite honestly. And what's been really nice about it, quite honestly, is one of the things I'm most proud about is we don't go like recruiting from other firms or poaching anyone, but if someone approaches us because they're unhappy where they were, or they think we're a better fit, then I'll certainly talk to them.
Right.
And that's really where we've seen our growth. I mean, people have come into us from a lateral standpoint. We've made a concentrated effort to kind of build our lower ranks as well, the associate ranks. We're up to 55 lawyers now, with probably another one joining us in July and another one scheduled to join us in September.
That's 55 across
the
those
board
locations.
Yeah.
So how many do you have in Westchester?
Most of us are in Westchester.
Yeah.
I forget the exact count, Rory. Maybe 37, 38
of
the 55 are in Westchester.
So all the satellite offices. I don't want to call them satellites.
No, I mean, 4 or 5, 3 in one, 4 in another, that kind of stuff.
And do they do all the same types of stuff, or are there some specialties going on in the periphery?
Yeah, periphery. Like for the one Newtown Square office, they do a lot of educational law, represent a couple different local universities, et cetera. The one in Philadelphia, the group in Philadelphia, strictly litigation. Down in Oxford, it's more estates, and municipal law related. And in Wilmington, really, that was
that's your newest one, Wilmington?
It is. Yeah. It is. And that's staffed on occasion based on client need.
I really like that Wilmington area.
Yes.
I do.
I think there's opportunity.
We're not in there right now, but...
right now is the operative phrase there, right?
Right now. Well, I consider that part of the greater Philadelphia metro area.
Sure. Absolutely.
And as you know, by being a board member of Mid-Penn Bank, we're doing our best to penetrate that market over the last 7 or 8 years, and you got a long way to go. But picking up a great bank like William Penn a little earlier this year was a good start. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely made progress. Not as much as we want down there, but it takes time. It's very, as you know, it's one of the more competitive areas in the Commonwealth, right, in the state, in the Southeast. So to make inroads is a little bit more difficult than elsewhere.
So you came to Mid-Penn by virtue of our acquisition of First Priority, which was done in 2018. And you had just joined that board.
Yeah, I think maybe 2 years.
Yeah. And did they come to you? Or
yes.
How did you find your way to First Priority?
To my recollection, they were looking for somebody with a network in Chester County. Specifically, and I forget who actually approached me to join that board.
Was it Mackie McLean?
No. I don't know if it was Sparks, Dave Sparks himself, or someone else. I don't really recall how that came to fruition. But I mean, they're looking for somebody with a network in the business community. I'm not sure that being a lawyer per se drove that decision or drove that outreach to me. It may have.
I think that banks, financial institutions love having lawyers on their board because there's, so much of what we do has legal implications. So, having that type of advice on the board is a great thing, right?
Yep.
But you're not just a holding company board member, you're a bank board member too. So you're one of the unique people so you have this expertise in law, but you're also really tied into the business community.
Fortunately.
You have great relationships. And that's not because of your work as a lawyer. Like, let's talk about some of the things that you do. I know you're actively involved in the chamber.
Yeah. I've been fortunate enough to get ahead and, it was a conscious effort to become involved. But quite honestly, I like it. I like being out in the community. I like meeting new people, et cetera.
You like making connections.
Absolutely.
Not just, you connecting with someone. You like connecting.
Very
others.
much so.
Yeah.
Very much so. And a lot of times, too, I feel like I'm like a semi-employment agency because, if somebody needs somebody to work,
Right.
connecting them that way. But, yeah, I mean, I've been fortunate enough to be on, several, boards. Obviously, the Mid-Penn, which is, by the way, I love working with you, love working with the other board members. I mean, I tell people out in the community, it's like just wholesome, good, solid people.
Right.
So, again, I believe in it. So it's easy to get and talk about it. I think we've been very fortunate with our board, but more as importantly with our employees. Like, we've got culture is everything. Man.
It is.
Culture is so key.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I'm so proud about. When I talked about earlier, people are coming to us, other lawyers, to join
Right.
the firm because they see what we have going on.
Right.
We have very, very, very few people leave that, and you see other firms are jumping from here to there. It's like, what's the best situation of the day? Unfortunately, we don't have that.
Yeah, and I suspect that you don't even want to recruit from other firms because, and we have the same issue. Like, I would much rather hire someone out of high school or college, put them through an educational program that Scott, handles downstairs in the university and, get them into whatever, we got so many different types of positions at the company, than going and hiring someone who was trained to do it some other way, who would have to acclimate to our culture. Because I said this in front of the employees a couple months ago. I said, this isn't for everyone. Like, we have a...
Correct.
Now, if you come here and you like the culture, this is absolutely the place for you. But it's not for everyone. And sometimes hiring what I call free agents is tough.
Yeah, I view it differently. I mean, not necessarily differently, but not exactly the same way. Because you want people rowing. My thought process is you want people rowing in the same direction, but you don't want clones of one another. Not that you're suggesting
No.
Not that you're suggesting that.
Exactly.
But so sometimes an infusion of a different way, and someone comes in as a lateral. It's like, oh, you know what? Hey, that's a good idea doing it that way. Where
Right.
I never would have thought of that. So there's actually potentially some upside to that.
So we end up getting free agents by a lot of our acquisitions. Earlier in the board meeting today, we were talking about the very first deal we did and the people that we got from that, Paul Spiegel and Angie Kern. And we got some really nice Paula Neidig and Sandy Big. We got some really good employees who are still here today, making a big difference. And our second deal was Scottdale. Not as many people from that transaction because a lot of them ended up retiring. First priority, we picked up Ray Mincarelli and Matt Miller and some really good pieces on the retail side, and the same thing with Riverview and the same thing with Brunswick. And so we get a lot of free agents that way. But we have recruited Heather Hall, who is Joan Dickinson.
Yeah.
We recruited her.
All studs.
Also, Jordan Space.
Yeah.
So we've been successful in recruiting executives, but I think mostly we build them, from the ground up, and I just think that's an easier way.
Yeah. I like doing it both ways, quite honestly.
Yeah, you have to do it both ways.
Yeah.
So I always liken it to, I know you're a big baseball fan, and I always liken it to the Yankees, because Steinbrenner in the 70s, late 70s, early 80s, fell in love with all free agents and didn't win a World Series for a long time. And then the Mets came along in the late 70s, and they were all farm system. And they had some really good players, but they weren't good enough to get to the next level until they picked up who? Keith Hernandez.
Okay. Right.
That was
First baseman.
First big signing, and then that led to Gary Carter. And then
it's like dominoes, right?
But they're still they have this great farm system, and they're getting Darryl Strawberry and Doc Gooden, and so
that's the analogy. They want to do the free agency with the farm system,
absolutely
right?
So emphasize the farm system, but you got to supplement that with some smart free agents, and that's kind of the way that we've run this company And it's kind of the way we've grown this company too.
Yep.
We always wanted to be, good organic bankers. We want to be able to, go into markets and grow. But you've got to do some smart M&A too.
Yeah, and not only that. I mean, again, another analogy between the bank and my firm, et cetera, is like it's being out there in the community.
Right.
I mean, one of the page, if you look on our website, one of the pages that I'm most proud about is our philanthropic activity.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't mean just writing checks. It means hours.
Does mean writing checks, but not only writing checks.
Correct. Yeah. Correct. So it's just part of the community. If you're in a service organization like a bank or a law firm, I think it's incumbent upon you to get out there and give back time and money, quite honestly.
Absolutely.
So
I mean, if you're getting most of your customers from an area, which I suspect you are, you're probably getting most of your customers from the greater Philadelphia metro area. If you want to be long-term sustainable, you got to give back to that community.
Correct.
And
that's I mean,
it's a no-brainer.
You're making relationships along the way.
Right.
Again, getting back, I was the chair for 16 years. I was on the Chester County Chamber Board. 2 of those years I was the chair. Right. Then we talked about being a commissioner on the athletic commission. Again, have met people in conjunction with that. Philadelphia Zoo Board. Has been I love that. Unfortunately I'm coming to the end of my third 3-year term. I have to rotate off. All I could do was 3-year terms. Although
Jody's going to
try to work something there.
She circles that gala that you have every year.
Well, he's coming up again. I'll give you the date. I'm still good for another year or so. And then also Alex's Lemonade Stand Foundation. I was on that board.
So you're not on that anymore?
I'm emeritus. I just rotated off at the beginning of this year, but I was on that for like 14, 15 years.
So did you fight that like all your career? Because you probably got asked to join 10 times as many boards as you actually joined, right?
10 times, maybe. Point taken. Yeah, but you have to get ahead again. So still, you have a home life you need to attend to.
Exactly.
Right.
Kids, and you have a practice to get around.
Exactly correct. So you have to go ahead and
manage.
I like being me. Yeah, I like being busy. Right.
Right.
I mean, I really do. After a long weekend, we talked about it, I have a lot of outside interests, right? Mm-hmm. But after a long weekend, I'm like, okay, Freddy, little skitsy, getting ready to get back into the fray again.
Right.
And I can relax and all that, but it's like, okay, what's the next thing we got going here?
So Scott, he has a place down in Ocean City, same place. Jody and I are fortunate to have one, and it's about 4.5 miles.
Yeah, right
away. So. Sometimes
from our respective houses.
He never comes down to my beach, but probably for good reason. But I'll walk 4.5 miles up to his place, play a little bocce ball.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that.
Hang out,
come visit me,
drink a couple waters, and whatever else.
That's because you're in training.
And then I walk 4.5 miles back.
Yeah, if I was in training, maybe I'd come see you. You're in training, so you come see me.
Well, you're always in training.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, it's just not for walking across the Grand Canyon, but. So how did you pick and choose the organization? So like Alex's Lemonade Stand is obviously benefits youth.
Yeah, it's the eradication of pediatric cancer specifically.
Right. Which,
huge.
Who can't get behind that, right?
Exactly. It's like, one of those situations. Mary Stengel Austin is the one that introduced me to that. She was the head of Tierney, the big communications company in Philadelphia. Now is on Glenn Mead's board, Philadelphia Inquirer's board.
Right.
She's the one who kind of asked me to come to that to be exposed to that. And as Tom Cruise says in whatever the hell movie that was, you had me at hello. I mean, just to give that presentation.
How do you say no to that?
Yeah. And it's really a special organization. It was formed by Liz and Jay Scott, whose daughter Alex, whom the foundation is named after, unfortunately passed away from glioblastoma. But in conjunction with that, she formed had a lemonade stand. And actually, on her own, raised like $1 million over time, and then it just blossomed from there. I think now the organization is doing about like $32 million a year.
Wow!
And doing such a good job as far as like dispersing it out to like really key areas, especially in today's world where there's governmental cutbacks, on research, funding for research, et cetera. One of the cool things about being on that board is they gave us the opportunity to go ahead and reach out to a couple of recipients of different grants. So as a board member, you'd be able to call up. I remember calling a couple people in Texas, talking about, hey, look, you just, I'm Joel Frank, board member of Alex's Lemonade. So I'll let you know that you're the recipient of a $500,000 grant over 2 years to enable your research to continue. Some of them cried, some of them screamed, some of them gasped. But it was kind of cool to see that how important it was to them, the recipients of those grants, to enable them to carry on their important work.
Look, when you're giving money to research doctors, I mean, we give much less than that to Penn Medicine.
Yep.
Dr. Payal Shah and the head of the Bosser Center, Susan Domchek, they are so appreciative. And I mean, we're giving them much less than $500,000, but they're so appreciative. They and she actually told me the reason they're so appreciative is because she worked for Penn Medicine. Like, you got to pay your way.
Yep.
And so she's got to do stuff for Penn that helps them, make money. But if she gets money given to her, then she doesn't have to do that, or she doesn't have to sit around and write grant applications.
Yep.
Which take a long time. So it's really meaningful stuff. And, it is disappointing to me. Like, I'm all for government efficiency. I think our government is extremely inefficient. And I think it's been for a long time.
It's bloated.
Yeah, it's bloated, and it's probably been bloated back to the creation of the military industrial complex, whatever. I mean, I remember, you were around in the early 80s and remember with the, $500 toilet seats and, everything.
Absolutely.
So I'm all for fixing that, but I'm not for, denying research grants to cancer doctors. And it's just that's a good use of our tax money.
It could be tough. Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be tough.
So, doing work like that with Alex's Lemonade stand is critically important.
Yeah. I got a lot of happiness as far as being able to contribute a little bit, the little bit that I did.
Now, was that organization started in Philly, or was that just a chapter?
I believe it was started in Philly. I mean, they lived up in Connecticut when Alex was first diagnosed, and then moved down here for treatment at CHOP. So that's and then really the headquarters down here. The headquarters ended up being in the Winfield section of Philadelphia or Ardmore.
Is CHOP considered one of the better pediatric cancer?
Yeah. There's like 5 or 6 throughout the country.
Is that Danny Thomas one? Is that still?
Well, that is that one. I forget the name of it. That's I'll say a competitor.
Is that
Miracle all doing good work?
Children's Miracle Network? Is that what that was? No.
St. Jude.
St. Jude. Yeah,
thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say I don't even call it a competitor because everyone's in it for the right reasons to get the kids treated properly and all. But they're not a part of that. But I know that Alex is specifically spreads the wealth out across the country, and it's there's more and more, even though headquartered in the Southeast PA, there's now different beachfronts, if you will, various parts throughout the United States, and there's even some international connections now.
So how long were you on that board?
15, 16 years.
Wow.
And I served as chair of that, I think, for about 4 or 5 years as well.
So did you cycle off that, or did you just say?
It was just. It was probably just time. It was probably time.
Give someone else a chance.
Yeah. Any organization, you want some fresh blood in there, fresh thoughts, etc. And a lot of the bylaws require maximize a certain number of directors. So after 15, 16 years, maybe even before, it was just time to get some new blood.
So in weighing that, Alex is against the zoo or the chamber, like which board have you felt that you've made the biggest impact and had the most enjoyment serving?
Yeah, I'm not trying to tap dance with you. I enjoyed each one of them that I've gone ahead and served on. I feel fortunate enough to be asked to serve on it. I garnered certain pluses from some versus others, etc. But each one I've really enjoyed. I've enjoyed the run. I really have.
And I think I know the answer to this, but did you do those things because you felt compelled to do those things, like to give back to the community? Or did you do those things to, have more people know who Joel Frank is?
Both.
Yeah.
Both. Like, for example, Alex's Lemonade. That was not like know who Joel Frank is. That's kind of just doing a philanthropic thing in a cause, a worthwhile cause. The Chester County Chamber.
That's a different story.
And I'd say the zoo's a hybrid.
Right.
Quite honestly. I've always been an animal guy even since I was a kid. I was very excited to be asked to join that board by the former president CEO Vic DeWan, who was a banker prior to becoming the president and CEO of the Philadelphia Zoo. So that was kind of like a hybrid. I mean, I made some connections on there from a business standpoint, but again, it was more for the animals. Like I said, always an animal guy, conservation, real important, et cetera. One of the cool things on that, Rory, is I serve as chair of the Programs and Initiatives Committee on the Philadelphia Zoo board, and that involves going out in the community, and the surrounding community is not necessarily well off, but bringing those kids in, getting educational programs up and running. In the surrounding community.
They do summer camps and things like that.
Yeah, stuff like that, exactly. Yeah, even working with the school district, different schools surrounding it, the zoo itself, the zoo property. So that's been rewarding as well.
When I was a kid and growing up in the city of Harrisburg, they had a thing called the Outdoor Education Center, which I think was up off of Derry Street, which is probably all developed now and it's no longer around. But like they would take us, city kids, take us and show us what woods were and like little animals and things like that. It was like one of the most amazing days. I'll never forget this. So they gave us a little sapling, here's your gift. And we get on the school bus and headed back, and everyone's throwing them out the window.
Oh, jeez.
Everyone except my best friend, Jimmy Burns, who lives down in Florida now.
Right.
He took that thing home and planted it in front of his house. Now, these are all like, kind of row homes. But a little patch of dirt in front of his house, he put that tree. If you go down 19th Street in Harrisburg, and I can't remember what his address was, that tree's still there.
That's cool.
It's like
That's
taller
cool.
than the house. So, those things are really beneficial, like programs for kids, whether it's during the school year, over the summer.
Yeah, like I said, exposing them to experiences that they never would have otherwise experienced.
Absolutely. Yeah. That is such great stuff.
Yeah.
So how are you mentoring young people? Like, what do you, as Lamb, McElwain, and as Joel Frank, like, how are you bringing on the next generation? Like, what all do you do there?
Really helping them get placed. I mean, one of the things I tell everyone, from me down to the first year associate who's coming on board is, find something in the community that you like. We never foist a specific spot on someone, but again, getting back to that theme, it's incumbent as a service industry to giving back to the community. Find something you like and go ahead and start, making those inroads right now. Join something to give back. And, listen, you may not be able to go ahead and contribute all that much either financially, especially as a youngest lawyer, whatever the case may be, paying off loans, et cetera. But, plant those seeds now, get involved, and then, you can foster those relationships and contribute more as you develop as a person and gain more and more experience.
Do you find that a lot of the kids that you're hiring out of college, out of law school, are they saddled down with a lot of debt? Are they saddled with undergraduate loans and law school loans? Or
in all honesty, I don't ask that question. I don't know. I don't know if they were, their family situation enables them to go ahead and, pay the freight also, or along the way, or whether they have loans. I don't know.
And do you guys have any type of mentor program where you take your, the associates that you're going to hire this year, first years, do you pair them up with, someone that's been around a little bit?
Well, yeah, we have a younger partner, a point person who we go ahead and try to, say, look, obviously I try to be always available, but if I'm not available or it's not a proper, or you're not comfortable talking to me directly, there's a woman, her name is Katie Liddell. She's a recent partner.
Yeah.
Her mom used to be with M&T Bank.
Right.
Kristen Liddell.
She's no longer?
No, I think she retired.
She retired?
Yeah, she retired. But Katie's like that person now, serving that role. Then we also internally...
She just got some good notoriety, right?
Yeah, she did. Correct.
What did she get?
One of the recognitions, I think, from the chamber board, as a matter of fact. You're correct.
I saw that,
yeah, up and coming, or so there's something. Women of achievement, maybe. She's very good. But we try as far as providing internal guidance as well. Is we have try to have quarterly associate meetings within the firm, whereby we talk about. Live up to associates. What topic do you want us to address?
Right.
And then try to get a little program over lunch, to go ahead and address that. So that's kind of the mentorship. We have those two aspects.
And how about the CLE stuff? Do you let the associates and partners figure out their own what they need to do?
Yeah,
or
that's on them.
Do any guidance on that?
No. Yeah, that's on their own.
Do you still do yours?
You still got it. It's 12 years. 12 credits a year.
12 credits a year.
Yeah, correct.
I used to like going to those things. And then COVID hit, and everything became like online.
Yeah, different story.
But I used to love going to those classes because I'd go to the Pennsylvania Bar Institute over in Mechanicsburg, and some of the presentations were live, but most of them were just recorded. I'd just take over my briefcase.
I'm sure. I can envision that whole thing.
I don't care what they're talking about. You know, I'm just there to do my time. I'm not a practicing attorney, but I want to keep my license.
Sure.
So it was always, on those days, the people that work for me, whether it was at Commerce or here, were like, oh man, he goes to one of those things, like a 4 or 5 hour session. He's going to have so many tasks to hand out because all I do is sit around and think, all right, how do I fix this? How do I fix that?
Yeah.
So, but you got to pay attention.
Yeah. Yeah. Correct. You got to pay attention. One of the, it's actually, you just said something that reminded me as well. I mean, I think I told you relatively recently, the Supreme Court appointed me to the Investment Advisory Board of the Supreme Court, which goes ahead at the CLA because we oversee all the funds.
Wait, are you talking about the Pennsylvania Supreme Court?
Yeah, PA Supreme Court, yeah. Oversees the investment funds from the CLE funds, Lawyers Fund for Client Security, IOLTA stuff, et cetera. So meet on that quarterly as well.
So you've obviously argued cases in front of Chester County Court.
Sure.
I know that your guys were up in Harrisburg last week. So is that arguments at Commonwealth Court?
Yeah, across the board. I mean, me and others in the firm, locally at Common Pleas Court, we argued from the Superior Court, Commonwealth Court, the 2 appellate courts, PA Supreme Court as well. Anything
on the federal level?
Federal level as well. Yeah, correct. I mean, I've had multiple, cases at the what would be the Common Pleas Court level, the District Court level, and federal court. I maybe only argued twice, I think, over the years at the Third Circuit level, more so appellate-wise on the state side.
Are you a member of the United States Supreme Court Bar?
Yeah, sure.
Right.
Yes,
that's a cool thing.
Early on. Yeah.
Did you go down to get sworn in?
I don't think I did. I think I did it remotely.
Goodness, Joe, I did that. It was great.
Yeah.
So I had a guy. You probably never met Chris Ciccone. Did you ever meet him anywhere along your?
I don't think so.
His last stop was with Stevens and Lee in Harrisburg, and we used to take an annual baseball trip. We'd go to different ballparks. So this one particular year is obviously after I became an attorney. We were down in D.C. and we're looking at all the monuments, and we walked by we didn't go to, but we walked by the Supreme Court, and he said, we would have needed to make like a plan to go in on the inside. He said, except for me, of course. I'm like, well, why? He said, because I'm a member of the Supreme Court Bar. So there's a special door that we go through on the back of the building. And I was like, how'd you get that? He's like, anyone.
Sign up, pay your $65, whatever it is you're in. Right.
Apply.
As long as you're in good standing, right?
And he said, and then you need someone to sponsor you.
Correct.
And so he did. He sponsored me, and I got in, and now it's the day. And you can go down or you can not go down. Well, I'm going down. So I went in and I sat there, and it's Chief Justice Roberts, and he actually.
So it was relatively recently.
Yeah, this was. I'm going to say it was like 2004, 5.
Okay, recent enough.
Yeah, somewhere around there. It was probably 20 years ago, maybe a little. It's somewhere around there. 4, 5, 6, 7, somewhere around there. And so you go in and you sit in this little box, and there's all the justices, and I'm fascinated by this. And he actually says, Rory Retrieve, the Chief Justice of the United States, says your name, and you sit there, you stand up, and you look at him, and your guy comes up and reads the little thing that they give him, and then the Chief Justice looks at you and says, Mr. Retrieve, welcome to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, that's cool.
And I was like, I grew up in Harrisburg on Sarker Street.
Right.
I never thought that the Supreme Court, the top guy is going to ever have my name in his mouth unless it was for something bad.
Yeah, right.
Like convicted. So that's really cool.
Yeah, that is cool. That's cool. And I think actually, you know what? There's a group of us supposed to go down there. I actually think I was in court. So I was unable to go, as a matter of fact.
Well, I mean, I took time. I took a vacation day to go do. You're a practicing attorney. So we should go down there sometime.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
Go hang.
Like maybe make it on a day when they're not, doing anything controversial.
I'm in.
Go down and go through our member door.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Grab a bite after.
Yeah, grab
I'm
a
in.
bite after.
Let me know when.
So what's next for Joel Frank? So we didn't get to talk about the commission.
Athletic commissioner?
Yeah, the athletic commission. Yeah. So how long you been doing that?
I am in my 12th year, I believe. It's 4-year terms. It's interesting because I was initially, Governor Corbett initially nominated me.
Mm-hmm.
But it actually requires Senate confirmation. So you have to go in front of the
Wow.
PA Senate and meet with the people there and do that thing. So what's interesting about it is, and the chairman of all commissions within the state government, it's almost always the same party as the governor.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm brand new to the commission, but I became in as the chairman
Right.
of the athletic commission, even though others had gone there, because the other two guys were Democrats and I was, a Republican. So I came in initially, and then Governor Wolf, Corbett was out, Governor Wolf was in. And what was interesting about that is, I think I've told you this, I was the first one to sue Governor Wolf after he became governor on behalf of Eric Arneson. It involved the Office of Open Records.
Right.
So I got to tell you, I was a little nervous that someone was going to put 2 and 2 together when it was time to get re-upped again. So
you got on. How long were you on under Corbett? Was it like a full 4 years
I don't remember, Lord.
or close to
I
it?
don't remember.
Now you're under Wolf. Now you got to get re-upped.
I did. I was re-upped twice. Long story
Yeah.
short, I was up twice under Wolf. But again, with my friends on the Senate, I'm lucky enough, fortunate enough to represent the Republican, Senate and sometimes the Republican House on occasion, among other lawyers as well. But I was able to go ahead and continue on in this role, which I really very much enjoy.
And when's your next?
I think I'm on for another year and a half.
And you haven't sued Governor Shapiro or anything. You're good there.
I think I'm good there, Governor Shapiro. But again, it's interesting, this specific position, because certain positions worry within the government. Like if you're done, it says 4 years, you're done at 4 years in one day. You're out, right? But the athletic commission specifically, the way it's written is you continue to serve until replaced.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm fortunate enough still have my positive relationships with the Pennsylvania Senate,
And of course, why
I could
wouldn't you?
just continue
do you
on.
know Shapiro, Governor Shapiro?
I've met him. I've been in
Yeah.
his presence. I mean, I had a couple of meetings with him here or there, but I can't tell you I'm tight with him.
What do you think? And I don't want to get too political, but what do you think overall about the job he's doing versus? I mean, I think there were a lot of things to criticize Governor Wolf about, and probably the same thing with Corbett. But
Yeah. Listen, I think it's important to have bipartisanship in order to get anything done, whether we're talking state level, in Washington, D.C. And I'll talk a little bit political with you unless you want to steer it another direction. But
no,
I mean, to me, it's about doing the right thing. And I realize that's a subjective, different people could say
Right.
what that constitutes, right? But, this us versus them mentality is it's not productive. It's not healthy
right.
for the productive, and unfortunately, I think, quite honestly, that's like, the 10 to 15% outliers on either party side, right? The vast majority of the people, I would like to think, and do think.
I promise you that you're right about that.
Yeah, just kind of get along. We're all United States citizens or Pennsylvania citizens, whatever the case may be. Let's just try to get and create a better life for everyone across the board.
Yeah, I don't know what the polar sides are. I don't know if it's 10%, 15%,
right.
Whatever it is. So if it's 15% of the people thinking that way and 15% of the people thinking that way, that means 70% of the people think, within degrees of the same thing.
And I think, quite honestly, the outliers, I don't say that disparagingly, but the outliers are the ones with the loudest voices. So it kind of skews.
So you don't have to call them. I'll say the radicals.
Okay.
The radical right, radical left.
Okay.
They're the loudest ones.
And it unfortunately skews, I think, people's vision of politics across the board.
Oh my gosh.
Whereas, like you said, 70%, whatever, 65, 70, 75% in the middle there, just kind of like shrugging and throwing up their hands. And unfortunately, just, the vehemence and the diatribe you have anymore is, people that are willing to get into political and do public service are like saying, like, why would I subject myself and my family to that?
Why?
So you're losing good people.
Absolutely. I don't think that there's any doubt about that anyone that aspires to be a politician now has got to have their head examined, because look what they've done to some people who were trying to do good things for the country, and they just
let alone outright violence.
Violence.
To elected officials and others,
and that's because of some of the elected officials use sloppy rhetoric, irresponsible rhetoric, and then that's amplified by the media.
It's problematic.
Yeah,
it really is. It's unfortunate.
Well, that's a whole nother podcast. I think we got to get Joel back. We're at 70 minutes, hour and 10, so that's...
That went quickly.
Yeah, it did go quickly, but I would love to have you back. I mean,
happily.
You and I could chop it up for a long time, and we didn't even touch on wives or, family and how the kids are doing, things like that. We can do all that stuff in another one. But thanks for coming in.
Thanks for the invite. Really much enjoyed it. And again, love my role on the board. Love the relationship you and I have formed, and appreciate the opportunity.
You bet, buddy. All right, Scott. So we're going to be back in a couple of weeks. Who's our next guest?
We're going to have some of our summer interns joining us.
That'll be fun.
Interns. That's going to be a good one. So we'll have Lisa Lenardi, who I know you know.
I do.
Which I still have a bone to pick with her about that. So her son got in a little trouble,
right,
in Westchester.
Correct.
And she didn't come to me. She went to Ray Mincarelli, and Ray got her to Joel, and Joel fixed it. I'm like, Lisa, what are you going to Ray for? You come to me. So, but thanks again for coming in, and we'll see everyone in a couple of weeks, and everyone have a great day.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, Scott.
Thank you for listening to the Mid-Penn Bank Podcast. You can find more episodes at Apple Podcast, Spotify, Amazon, and more. Do you have a question about the podcast? Email us at podcast@midpennbank.com. References in this podcast to Mid-Penn are to Mid-Penn Bancorp, Inc. and its subsidiaries and affiliates. This podcast expresses the views of its participants and may not represent the views of Mid-Penn or its officers and employees. In addition, these views are subject to change without notice, and Mid-Penn has no duty or obligation to update the information contained in this podcast. This podcast is being made available for informational purposes only and should not be used for any other purposes. You are encouraged to consult with competent legal, tax, accounting, or investment professionals before engaging in any financial transaction. Mid-Penn does not make any warranties as to the accuracy or completeness of the information in this podcast, does not endorse any third-party companies, products, or services, and assumes no liability for your use of this information. Forward-looking statements should not be considered guarantees or predictions of future events. This podcast is the sole property of Mid-Penn and may not be copied, reproduced, republished, or posted in whole or in part in any form without prior written consent of Mid-Penn.